Hello drivers! Big news to cover today with the appearance of 3 very early builds of Driver San Francisco. In fact, they are so early that it's not even the game we know, but rather the prototype that was called Driver NG at the time, otherwise known as Driver Next Gen. We've known about it for a long time, but it is the first time we've been able to get our hands on it and discover a lot of new things and appreciate the progress of its development. Think of it as informal Insomniac museum for the Driver series. For the record, the builds were first discovered in a dev build for Hawks, another Ubisoft game featuring jet fighters. What's available in this prototype is mainly free drive gameplay, but remember that there are 3 builds in this leak. While they are similar, particularly 2 of them that are almost identical, one build seems to focus on showing off the work done on the city environment, while the others show off driving games in a different, less detailed city. That said, let's find out what's inside these builds, which are 2 weeks apart, and take a first look before more in-depth videos later. Obviously, these are very early versions, dating back to September and October 2008, but the game was already set in San Francisco and some areas were already well developed. If we take the city build as an example, this area near the Transamerica pyramid is almost completely finished, even if it doesn't correspond to the final game. In fact, I think this area has more complex geometry with more objects on the buildings and more depth. If you go near St. Peter and Paul Church, you can even see the famous train cable that's missing from the final game next to Washington Square. On the other hand, the rest of the environments are far from complete, and most of the time you will just be driving down the street with empty space on either side. The street layout, by contrast, is almost complete and looks like a 101 reproduction of the city of San Francisco, but the other island isn't there yet. I found a bridge that you can cross, but it leads to a dead end and a short loop. I haven't found a way to get to the Golden Gate Bridge, and I suspect it doesn't exist yet, apart from that weird level of detail in the distance. Talking of landmarks, you can already spot a few. As I said, the Transamerica pyramid and the church are there, quite detailed and textured, while others are untextured early versions. For example, I found the Ferry building, the Coit Tower in the distance, and even the Palace of Fine Arts, which faces directly onto the street, unlike the final version. I haven't explored the whole map yet, and I think there is still a lot to see, but I did come across this windmill, which is true to life in its location, but doesn't exist in the final game. The most different part of this version, though, is clearly the Twin Peaks area, which is a big open field, very different from what we had in the final version. It's the countryside that we missed, even though the openness may just be due to the build and not what was intended, but you can see rocks and grass that are no longer there in the version we got. Sutro Tower is already there though, so we can say with certainty that this area is supposed to be Twin Peaks. It's time to talk about the traffic, which is packed and dense, far too much to be honest, and you tend to take the sidewalks to drive around. Pedestrians are different, as you might guess, and have different animations to avoid your car. Traffic cars don't do much, and their behaviors reminds me of the final version when you set the traffic settings to maximum near the construction site. More importantly, there were no licensed cars at this stage, so everything you see has been replaced in the final game. I did, however, come across a UBS truck, which is very much in Reflection's habit of spoofing brands in the game. This is where you can see how much this prototype relies on driver parallel lines code, which is confirmed by looking at the files that use leftover assets and share the file format with parallel lines. What's fascinating is that shift is already present, just not in the form we are familiar with. Instead, pressing the triangle gives you a selection of cars that you can move to by pressing either square, circle or cross. This came in handy when I was about to fall off the edge and was able to change car fairly quickly. This version also features driving games with a precursor of picture-in-picture cutscenes when you zap into a vehicle for the first time, but once you've started, you can simply free drive.
That'll teach you to chase a pro, rookie.
Watch the road!
Touch that wheel again and I'll...
I said, watch the road, damn it!
To get more gameplay, you need to use the other build, called the FPP gameplay build. Here the map is smaller and there are no textured models, so I guess it was designed to test the gameplay mechanics and mission. Shift is there, but it's called Zap, and shifting to enter a car launches a driving game. If you zap into a taxi, you get a scripted scene that's another version of picture-in-picture. If you remember, it is the alpha prototype you can see in one of Max Thunder's video. It's going to be able to finally play it so you can experience the handling of the car for yourself. There is also a bit less car traffic than in the other build, which makes it easier to maneuver even if the environments are dull. I just recognized the Palace of Fine Arts, but I was on the highway. But that wasn't the point of this build. Once you have completed the challenge, which reminds me of online qualifiers, you see on the end screen that medals have been planned, as well as unlocking characters to zap into, I guess, and also new abilities. For example, the gap prediction, the meaning of which I don't understand, even though I've used it in another driving game from this build, Scare the Passenger. It's the same as the tutorial mission in the final game, but with points, a multiplayer and a timer. There is also a Takedown driving game where you have to smash up a getaway car and you can enjoy the magnificent police car lights in action. But what's more, there is an on-screen mirror that works, unlike the final game. You can also be the fugitive, but the cop AI doesn't work very well. Another driving game, after unlocking them by completing the other driving game, is the checkpoint race, which is straightforward. The final interesting discovery is that online play seemed to be planned from the start. It might be that the driving game's build was designed to also test the online features, which allow players to join the session to play driving games together. I haven't looked at the online and LAN options yet, and I'm guessing they don't work, but who knows. And that's it for this first look. This is a great piece of history for the Driver series, as it shows what will become Driver San Francisco 3 years before its release. It's possible that we will discover more as we explore the builds, and I will keep you posted, as well as publishing gameplay videos of the build in the coming days. Tell me what's the more interesting new things you have learned today. For me, it was clearly the open field and countryside vibe of Twin Peaks that is completely missing from the final game. In the meantime, why not joining the Redriver Club? You will join drivendimension.com, Neocinch, French Contact, Takedown YouTube, Paul Lanois, David Autosport, Mute, Denis Frontier and Wolfbite in supporting this channel. In any case, see you soon, drivers.